my sound okay? Because I left my earpiece somewhere and it's not with me right now. So is it okay?
It's perfect.
Great.
So today, unfortunately, Sonia Abba won't be able to join because of illness. But nevertheless, we still have 3 distinctive panel speakers, so I'm quite excited for it. In the meantime, for the audience, as we're still waiting for more people to join, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat room. And also it will be helpful to know whether you are an entrepreneur yourself or an investor, or also an intermediary. So yeah, it's a really interesting time to know who is interested in this topic when it comes to gender inclusion through investment.
I think we can start. I just got a call from Anita, but she is also joining shortly as well. Okay. So maybe we can start.
Great.
Mehat, do you want to start the session, please? Thank you.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Can you hear me loud and clear? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. The gender inclusion through investing. How can we do that? This is a very special, which is focused on the women entrepreneurs of Bangladesh, and it's organized by B-Briddhi, which is a multi-year program that aims at building the ecosystem of impact investing in Bangladesh. This program, it's backed by the Embassy of Switzerland in Bangladesh, and it's been implemented by the Roots of Impact and likeness of partners, along with other stakeholders, including investors, private sector organizations, incubators, and support organizations for impact enterprises in Bangladesh. For this session, we have a highly reputed panelist. We have Anita Appa from Legal Circle, Vision Bhai, who's a co-founder and CEO of Likeness of Partners, Silvana Appa from Prava Health, and it's being led by, moderated by Maxim, who's the lead market and capacity building program from Roots of Impact. We were also supposed to have Sonia Bashir Appa in our session, but unfortunately she had to skip it because of her health issues, and she has shared our condolences. But nevertheless, we have an exciting session coming up for you right here. So I'm going to pass my my floor to Maxim, who is the lead, who's the team lead of market and capacity building programs at Roots of Impact. She's also the program manager of B-Briddhi, and she is a skilled translator of impact measurement to both impact entrepreneurs and investors. And till date, she has facilitated over 10 impact-linked finance transactions globally. So let's not wait further around and go to Maxim. Maxim, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mehat. So if you allow me, I would like to share the screen so that I can share a few impulses before we get into the panel today. Thank you. Okay, let's go. So welcome everybody. So today, yeah, I hope like it was clear to everyone that we're talking about gender inclusion through investing, which is a very exciting topic and gained quite a bit of momentum in the past year. While acknowledging that actually gender is more of a spectrum instead of a binary concept. Within the context of B-Briddhi, the mandate is to focus on Bangladesh. And so as a program, we also recognize that the traditional gender norms in Bangladesh tend to exclude women from the position of being the decision maker, not only in the business and professional sphere, but also on a household level. And so in the conversation today, we will very much talk about women inclusion, but I think nevertheless, in order for the ecosystem to grow and be a bit more aware of what it means to become more gender inclusive and to apply a gender lens, this is nevertheless a very important concept to be introduced. Generally, when we talk about applying a gender lens, it involves asking the question of how power privilege and bias operate within companies, markets, and also society on a personal level. But zooming in to the topic of investing and how to incorporate gender lens in investing, I think it's also quite helpful to share what are some of the entry points, so to speak, when we would like to apply a gender lens in investment. Very often we think about investing in female entrepreneur, but at the same time, there are actually also many other ways of supporting women in the pursuit of entrepreneurship, but also on a wider sense to empower women as a consumer. And so here on the left-hand side that you can see on the screen, we can also look into applying a gender lens in many different ways. On one hand, we can encourage more women to become investors, to provide access to capital for women, and to promote women in leadership position. At the same time, when we think about as an organization, through our investment, we can also incentivize certain companies or organizations to put more emphasis on workplace equity. At the same time, for example, if we are talking about the product or the service level, how can we understand the impact in terms of gender inclusion? We can also really look into the supply chain, how women is being involved and engaged, and also how product and services are designed or creating certain benefits for women to address the certain gap that is currently exists due to traditional gender norms. And when it comes to helping to understand how gender inclusive certain investment is, there has been actually quite some knowledge to be shared by the community in the gender lens investing sphere. What I find very useful is a 2X challenge as a framework to understand are we really fulfilling certain criteria in order to be qualified as a gender lens investment. Generally, when we talk about gender lens investing, it refers to the use of capital to stimulate financial return and also advance gender equality by integrating gender analysis into the financial analysis and decision-making process, and not only about who the founder or the entrepreneur is. Also, it involves carefully examination of the different implications and the needs of the people of all genders. So this is also the reason why we have set up this event today and give it a title of gender inclusion instead of just women inclusion. To make it even more tangible, I think this graph is very helpful for us to break down further the investment process and to think about how the application of gender lens could look like. And B-Briddhi as a program itself, with also our catalytic funding pillar of activities, we have also gone through quite a vigorous gender analysis ourselves to evaluate how we have been performing as a program to make sure that we are not gender blind for sure, but how can we also be more gender transformative in the way we source and evaluate to structure, as well as towards the very end to measure the impact of the companies, especially when it comes to gender inclusion. Here, I find it quite interesting because I think some of the conversation has been that, during the deal sourcing, how can we make sure that the information reaches to women? And we can also dive deeper in the panel discussion later on today, which I'm sure Silvana, Anita, Abba, and also Bijan has a lot to share based on the experience. And then also what I would like to highlight here is that, when we talk about gender lens investing, there is obviously a reason because you would like to promote gender inclusion. But how can we understand whether we are doing a good job or not? Impact measurement at the very end is very essential. And often it starts with starting to collect sex disaggregated data so that you can start monitoring and keep track on it. And on this specific part of gender lens investing, we will be hosting another event early next year, hopefully in person, if it allows, to dive deeper on this topic. But without further ado, because we have a very interesting panel that is also very representative of the Bangladeshi market and context today, I wouldn't want to take more of your time. But to start, actually, I would also like to share this photo and to prompt some thinking among all of you. What does inclusion mean to you? And with that, I would also like to start this panel by asking Silvana the question, what does gender inclusion mean to you, Silvana?
I think it means really incorporating diverse voices in decision making. That's really, I think it's quite simple. The evidence is very clear that diversity in teams promotes better and more resilient decision making. So that's what it means to me.
Cool. Oh, by the way, so I haven't actually quite shared what Silvana's amazing background is. Apart from being the founder, chair, and CEO of Brava Health, she is a Bangladeshi American lawyer and entrepreneur. So she has built Brava Health from scratch after experiencing the challenges facing the Bangladeshi healthcare system firsthand. And so Brava Health is a patient-driven company trying to disrupt the standard for healthcare for Bangladeshi 170 million citizens. At the same time, she is currently serving more than 250,000 patients and tripling growth every year since launch in 2018. Brava's tech-forward model is designed to be efficient, accessible, and scalable across emerging markets, where 85% of the world lives. So Brava's work has been featured by Forbes magazine and Financial Times and was recognized by Fast Company as one of the world's changing idea in 2020. In 2021, the World Economic Forum also named Brava Health as a technology pioneer. So thank you so much for being here today, Silvana. Moving forward.
Thank you for having
me. Great. So moving forward, we have Anita Gazi-Rahman. Anita Appa, welcome. So she's the founder and managing partner of the Legal Circle. She's an advocate at the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. In 2008, she founded the Legal Circle, a legal firm that provides services across all aspects of company and security law, including advisory, litigation, M&A, shareholder disputes, corporate restructuring, loan capital and employment, energy, civil litigation, and business formation. She has also been serving as an independent director at Chittagong Stock Exchange since February last year. She's also the founder and editor of Think Legal Bangladesh, which is an online legal platform dedicated to open sharing of legal knowledge. Legal Circle has also been appointed as an investment advisory partner to a $65 million first of its kind VC fund, Startup Bangladesh Limited, and the Ministry of ICT of the Bangladesh government. So Anita Appa, welcome. Maybe at this point you can also share what gender inclusion means to you.
Thank you so much, Maxime. And if you start calling me Appa, I have to call you Appa too, Maxime. No, thank you. So for everyone in the room, I know Maxime for a few years now, and we are friends. So I don't know why she's calling me Appa. Don't call me Appa. So in terms of what gender equality means to me, it means to me, like you showed in the photo, in the last slide, it means gender equity or equity. And for me, what it means is taking away the predefined responsibilities that our society puts on women so that they can, work at par or try to perform at par with the other genders.
Great, thank you. Then let's move on to Bijan, who I also have the privilege to work with in the past 2 years on B-Briddhi as a partner. Nevertheless, I would like to highlight what are some of the many things that he's active in contributing to the Bangladeshi ecosystem. So apart being from the co-founder and CEO of Castle Partners, an organization that focuses on creating data-driven opportunities for growth and impact for development partners, corporates, SMEs, and startups. They also have been in the past 8 years leading Bijan himself leading the company in engagement across over 130 businesses and development partners, over 400 SMEs and startups, and over 30 accelerator programs in multiple industries, including technology, agriculture, health, energy, and manufacturing. So like Castor, as I also mentioned, is a local partner to B-Briddhi, a project that facilitates catalytic funding impact investment program jointly run, also supported by the Swiss Embassy in Bangladesh. Recently, like Castle has also been appointed as the due sourcing and due diligence partner to a 65 million US dollar fund, which is also the Startup Bangladesh Limited under Ministry of ICT of the government of Bangladesh. So Bijan, thanks for being here and showing your support. Being one of the very few male panelists on this session today, what does gender inclusion mean to you?
Thank you, Maxine, for that question. And I don't think I'll be as articulate as either Silvana or Anita Apu. I'll call Anita Apu, Anita Apu and not Anita. But for me, I think the introduction to the topic was very new. I think it started back when someone pointed out that when we were a team of small, like 15 people, all 15 members were male. And someone pointed out, why is that? So we kind of started into the topic. And then for me, the understanding maybe 3-4 years down the line is that it means creating enough diversity in the organizations and making sure the organizations or the culture is in a way that supports and rewards diversity. That means the more diverse the organization becomes, the more inclusive the organization becomes, the more incentives for growth the organizations will have. So once that's, for me, that culture that supports diversity and inclusion, for me, that's possibly would be definition of gender. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Bijan. So today, unfortunately, Sonia won't be able to attend because she's ill. But nevertheless, I would also like to introduce another guest in the room who will share a little bit of the latest development in the Bangladeshi impact investing space, Nishor Rahman from Bangladesh Angels. We can definitely leave a bit of time at the end of this session and hear what is the latest development and what you are cooking up and related to the gender inclusion topic in Bangladesh. But coming back first to the panel, Silvana, question to you. As an entrepreneur yourself, what are some of the key challenges that you have faced so far in your entrepreneurial journey? Would be nice to hear from your experience.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. I mean, there are many challenges that all entrepreneurs have to face along the way and that we continue to face even as we grow. I think that access to capital has been a massive challenge that we have faced, even today after proving out the business model and the economics of our business and, showing really aggressive growth organically. And a lot of that, I think, relates to the market. Bangladesh is still yet an untapped market that investors don't necessarily realize as how exciting the opportunity is, or if they do, their mandates haven't caught up to that realization. And so that's definitely been a challenge. And, since this is a panel on gender, it's hard to quantify the extent to which gender has played a role in the challenges I've faced fundraising. I'm not usually in the room when men are pitching, so I don't know how different that experience is for them versus me. I did have one of my investors who was a white man participate in a meeting I had pitching actually with 3 older men, and he actually was very shocked and came out of it and said, I've never seen a founder grilled that way. Like, that was really aggressive. And I didn't really think it was crazy, but actually I have to say, I think generally, I mean, even, I had a 15-year career before starting my company in the private sector and the public sector. And I had already had the experience in my life and in my career that I do think women have to work harder. And I actually think that's a good thing in the end because it makes us better. I think that it makes me a better founder to have to be prepared to be grilled for those questions. I'm more, I'm as on top of the numbers as I can possibly be going into those conversations. I'm, try to be prepared for every question that can come at me. And so I think that it might not be fair, but I think at the end of the day, it makes us better. And I think that's why the data is so overwhelming that women founders outperform male founders. And it really is overwhelming. I mean, I think there's a BCG study that for every $1 of funding, women-founded companies generate more than twice as much as male-founded companies. And despite that, I think in 2020, it was one of the worst years to date for women founders. I think only 9% of companies that receiving venture funding were founded by 1 or more women. And in terms of dollars, the number went down in absolute value as well. And so the challenges certainly remain, but I think that we're talking about it. We're here at this panel. I think that the positive thing that I can say is since starting my career, we're talking about it a lot more than we used to. And I think that recognizing it, having men at the table to help us move the conversation forward is really positive, and hopefully it's going to help us to change things for the next generation.
Thank you, Silvana. Maybe one follow-up question, because I think you mentioned some of the ways that you have overcome some of these challenges, like be prepared, make sure that you're really performing. But is there also any particular type of help that you appreciate that really stand out when facilitating you or helping you to overcome these gender-specific challenges?
I think you have to find allies. I think it's really important to find allies in older women. Sonia Pa, unfortunately, isn't here, but she's been a wonderful mentor to me personally and to my company. And, I think she's a great example, but not just allies in women, but also allies in men who recognize the challenges that we face. My lead investor is a man, and he's often saying to me, maybe some of the challenge is about me being a woman. He thinks about it, I think, more than I do. But just, to have that support, and he's like, look, he's like, that's why, he's like, because of how hard it is, that's why your company is going to be 10x better than the one founded by me. He's very encouraging. And I think like having those allies around you, in various forms, I think, has been absolutely, those have been my rafts during this journey. Those are the people I reach out to in the dark moments, or in the moments, the personally dark moments, for the moments when we need tactical help and advice as well. So I think it's really important for all entrepreneurs, men and women, to build advisory boards of people you trust, who both have some of the skills that you don't have. Like, I'm not a doctor, for example. So when I started my company, I added medical advisors to my board. I added people with deeper expertise in health technology than I did. And so, I think building advisory boards is a formal way to do it, but then there's other informal relationships that I think it's important to build and invest in over time that will eventually may result in bigger things than you can even imagine, but ultimately have really helped me to get to where we are today and continues to do so.
Thank you for pointing out the importance of finding allies, not only among women, but also through men. And also, I think it's very interesting that you highlighted that, it's important to build relationships in both formal and informal ways, because they always help you in the moments that you least expected. And I think it's interesting because at the end of the session today, as I mentioned, Ben has something exciting to announce. And I think that also works or build on that facilitation to enable people to build allies and find their own network and build allies. Great. Thank you so much, Silvana. So maybe we can move on to Anita. So you have been, yes, indeed, we have been working together actually. And I know you have also a lot of experience in facilitating investment as a lawyer yourself, but you're also an angel investor yourself. So maybe to start, is there any particular investment that you have seen that makes you feel, what are some of the ways that you have seen as you facilitate channeling investment, particularly to women founders? So what are some of the ways that has been deployed so far?
Okay, Maxime, just before that, can I just add on to something that Silvana said? Yeah, thank you. So I just want to second something Silvana said, and it's so true. No matter which industry you're in, I feel women have to work harder at lesser pay. Right? I've had this experience where someone in my firm who's 7 years my junior, and with probably half the experience I have, asked for a certain fee and got it like that. Whereas when I ask for it, I will always get pushback. Oh, you're so expensive. Really? You charge as much as, US lawyers. Why? I don't understand. I would love someone to give me an answer to that. But, moving on to the question that you asked, Maxime, whether we're seeing transactions with the gender lens or particularly working that into investments and transactions, right? Did I get the question right? Okay, great. So in terms of particularly a gender lens, we haven't seen that. What we have seen for many, many years now is, impact metrics or impact KPIs, transactions, M&A, quasi M&As, right? Because if it's 100% merger, then they're taking over the organization. But say partial M&As or investments will oftentimes give you KPIs in relation to one, before they get into the transaction, signing an undertaking that I haven't done A, B, and C, and I will continue not to do A, B, and C, right? But also putting in certain KPIs on before I get my second tranche payment, there will be, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I will ensure happens in order to turnkey the payment, right? However, we haven't seen this in terms of gender lens specifically. And this is something very interesting to think about. And as I was thinking about your question, I thought, maybe, I don't know how it's done in other jurisdictions, Maxime, and you can shed light on this, but maybe it is time for us and companies in Bangladesh to think about having a gender lens roadmap for companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. I think it's very interesting that you have mentioned the impact matrix in the investment during that you have seen or come across during facilitating the investment process. Would you be able to share a few of the matrix like related to gender inclusion that you have come across, just so that the audience would also have a bit of helps them to contextualize a little bit?
Sure. Thanks, Maxime. So in terms of gender matrix itself, so first off, I have to clarify, it's not really impact matrix as you see in, Germany or any of the Western countries, because because even there, I think there's quite a debate on what is the right formal metric system to use. When I was talking about impact metrics, I used it more loosely in terms of environmental and social impact, very broadly put into the investment documents. In terms of whether I've seen particularly gender-linked impact, no, I will have to be very honest and say I have not seen an investment yet where they put in requirements in relation to having women be part of the company, or a certain percentage of women being employed by a company.
Maybe on that note, I can actually share a few experience during the conversation or interaction with Bangladeshi companies in the context of B-Briddhi. Because generally within B-Briddhi, as I mentioned at the beginning, part of the idea is that, we facilitate inclusive business growth through using impact investment or financing instruments. And so at times when we talk to businesses, for example, Upon, which I think a lot of you are well aware of it, they do have a gender angle. For example, how can we facilitate women being the decision maker in taking care of, even just purchasing of a grocery, which in the end lead to health insurance coverage. So these are some of the topics that we talk about. But generally, I think to start with, it's important to know, for example, how many percentage of your customers is actually women and how many of them is men is already one way to start. Another innovative way that I've come across is also to know, because I think it's very interesting because I get to learn about the market so much, is that, very often the ownership of smartphone or feature phone is still in the hand of male in the household. So you cannot even tell who can get access to the service because, the ownership of the phone, which is the door or the key to open to opportunities, is not in the hand of women. How can you still nevertheless get a better idea of who you are really serving? Because the woman in the household may be using the phone to get access to the platform, even though they don't own the phone themselves. So these are some of the really nuance that as investors, I think we could start like to think about also as an entrepreneur, how can I better understand my customer base? I think this is a super interesting topic that we definitely would dive deeper into next year when it comes to the impact measurement and management topic event next year. But yeah, thanks, Anita, very much for sharing your experience. And I think also Bijan, actually, it would be interesting to move on to you right now, because also apart from being very active in the startup scene in the past 8 years or so, you also have continuously take on new challenges, and most recently, it's like to take part in the Gender Lens Investing Fellowship with the AVPN. So I think it's very interesting to hear your perspective as well. So when it comes to the topic of gender among investors, like this topic, what does it say about the industry of impact investing? And also, maybe you can also share a little bit of your aha moments, if any, from your participation at the Gender Lens Investing Fellowship this year with AVPN. Bijan, over to you.
Sure, thank you. And I'm not as experienced as on the topic as Anita and Silvana, but I'll give my perspectives. First of all, I think when we started the fellowship, it was interesting because I was in a Zoom call like this. And then I think I was one of the 3 or 4 male members that was attending that particular fellowship, right? So everyone else was kind of female. So that was interesting kind of to start off the bat. But what I understood and from my experiences, and which was interesting, that gender is not just about being female. So that was kind of like a moment that, yes, it's not just about females, it's about diversity and inclusion, right? And when it comes to investing, this also doesn't just mean investing in companies that have female founders or co-founders. It goes beyond that. How does it go beyond that? So definitely it can be a company that is founded or has female co-founders, but it can also be females are in decision making. They're not necessarily has to be the founders of that particular company. It can also be, when you're investing, that particular company is also creating products and services, which again are being sold or used to reach to vulnerable groups. One classic example would be companies like Shuttle, which provides transportation services to female, right? Not necessarily the company was founded by a female entrepreneur, but they have a mandate to create employment for females, and they're also selling products and services that are very targeted towards females as well. The third thing that also came up, it can be that maybe the company is not directly selling products and services, or doesn't directly have a female co-founder, but they're actively trying to create more employment for females, whether through their value chain, whether through their structures, and they're supporting that. One particular work that we worked with Anita was that we are doing a deal with Sheba XYZ, which is a large service marketplace company, and Anita and we are working to give them an investment deal out of Startup Bangladesh Limited, which is the government-owned venture capital company. And both of us kind of put this term in kind of like the agreement that within certain roadmap, they have to reach certain amount of female-led SMEs in their portfolio to unlock the second tranche, because it was given a tranche model. And they also have to reach certain milestone on executive management, not just employee number. So I think those were interesting numbers to give. So yeah, I think to summarize the aha moments where gender is not just about female, it's about vulnerable groups, promoting diversity and inclusion. And gender lens investing doesn't only mean investing in companies that have female founders, but goes beyond that, providing products and services to female and vulnerable groups, or even creating more employment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bijan, for your sharing. When it comes to, I would just also like to throw another question to deepen the thinking of the audience here, which is like when we talk about gender lens investing and empowering women specifically in this context, is that, do we want to stop at creating employment for women and allow them to just, be employed and we're happy about it? Or do we also want to create opportunities to employ women so that they have better chances to climb up the ladder and become the leader? So this is a very different depth of impact that you will be able to create. So for those who are entrepreneur or investors here, I think this is also a question for you to think deeper. Do you want to stop at just creating employment opportunity, or do you want to go further? How does this fit into your vision of social inclusion or gender equity? So that's just a little bit of thinking or food for thought out there. But Bijan, back to you, actually. I think we can also discuss a little bit more when it comes to gender lens investing, apart from the fact that, gender is not only talking about women. But I think another interesting part or another dimension of talking about gender lens investing is the finance bit, right? Like maybe we can talk a little bit about the type of instruments or financing that would be more suited to female entrepreneurs or female-led companies. Would you be able to share a bit on that?
Sorry, Maxime, I got disconnected for a bit. Could you repeat the question? Apologies for that.
Sure, no problem. And so the question is more related to the type of financing when it comes to specifically addressing the needs or certain gaps for supporting women entrepreneurs. Would you be able to share a little bit as in what kind of needs, like financing needs, are relatively unique to female entrepreneurs or female-led enterprises? And what are some of the possible fitting financing instruments to address these gaps?
Sure. Thank you, Maxime. I'll try to answer best as I can. Not necessarily those will be the right answers, but those will be just my opinions or perspectives. I think access to finance in general for Bangladeshi companies are hard in general, whether it's international financing, whether it's local financing. It's tough. It's tough for both all kinds of founders. And I think for female founders, what we have found, it often gets more difficult as well. I think one of the things that again come up, and I have seen this because I have worked with a lot of accelerators and incubators. Oftentimes when I've seen female CEOs pitch, they have been questioned a lot about their co-founders, right? Usually when I see male CEOs often pitch, CEO kinds of bees in the center, and then the co-founders comes next. But I have seen this, over time that sometimes if you're a female CEO, you're pitching to a room full of investors or judges. You're being asked about your team members slightly more than you're possibly asked if you're a male founder as well. And I think there are certain sectors. I think this can be there can be an biased opinion that female founders are founding companies in certain sectors. Health is interestingly one of them. But I think that biasness is definitely there. So if you're a female founder, I've often seen, I have seen communications coming in from different stakeholders, get female founders in, say, health, or are there any female founders in this particular sector? I haven't gotten communication like, we need female founders in artificial intelligence or deep tech. I don't know why. So I think that kind of sector biases is also definitely there. On trying to answer on what kind of instruments can really help this, that's again, I think, difficult to answer. I don't think I have the proper direct knowledge to do that. But I think one thing that we have seen when we tie up different numbers with different incentives that possibly make sense and supports different kind of instruments. For example, on the banking industry where I've worked for a long time, there were certain guidelines and mandates that there has to be certain female-led companies into the portfolio, and there were preferential interest rates that supported women-owned SMEs, right? Similarly, there were portfolios and incentives to create support agriculture-led SMEs as well. So I don't know if those kind of structures can be built to support more diversity in, say, VC or angel portfolio, but that can be a place to start. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just react to that, Maxime.
Sure, please.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think it's just about creating new instruments. I think we're fine with the instruments that are out there. We just need more. We just need to have access to them. I don't think we need special instruments. We just need more women in decision-making positions in venture capital firms and private equity firms and all investment firms. And when that happens, I think that some of the challenges will dissipate. But I don't think we need special investment mechanisms.
Okay. I see that there is someone from the audience who raised her hand, Tureen from Total Ventures, if I remember correctly, right?
Oh, yes, Maxim, thank you for remembering me. And I'm extremely sorry to interrupt. And I just wanted to add with Bijon Bhai and Silvana what she said. Yes, we don't need special instruments, but from Total Venture, we've been the very first women in technology accelerator program for the last 3 years, and we've been working so closely with the women founders. And yeah, I said, as if you have a male co-founder, if you are able to run the finances, do you understand how the finances work and whatnot? And also as we have been running Women in Technology Accelerator, the most question is like, do you understand technology? Like, do you really understand the AI that we're talking about? And do you know how that's functioned? So yes, there were partners. They asked like, I don't know if we want to sponsor this event, a woman in technology. That doesn't sound, much legit. So yes, I'll go with Bijon Bhai that yes, there will be any type of finance stuff in Bangladesh. Also, women founders get asked few questions, and we might need to work on that a little bit. And as Silvana Apu said, we don't need special financing tools. We just need more access and acceptance on those particular events or particular pitch session, and regarding all the investment summits or events that we're attending right nowadays. So that's all I wanted to add from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Tureen. Silvana, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think, I feel like I also think that we need less lip service, and we need more substance around the concept of gender lens investing, right? And I think that there's a really, I don't know how many people here are following this case, but there's a lawsuit right now relating to the Theranos case in the United States, which is a case of a female founder who raised $900 million for a biotech company and basically defrauded her investors and patients with technology that didn't exist. And what's become really clear is that her investors didn't due diligence her at all. And many of them were very excited to invest in a female founder. She was very compelling, very charismatic. And she got a lot of accolades. She was on the cover of Fortune magazine and all of this stuff. But just investing in women for the sake of investing in women is not going to help any of us, right? You still need to do your homework when you're due diligencing deals. But it has to be equal footing, right? Like, I think like investors need to make decisions based on data and logic. And of course they should connect to the founder. Of course, charismatic founders do a better job raising money, but you also need, you need data and logic to make your decisions. And I think if across the board investors do that, that'll be good for all of us, instead of often making decisions based on pattern recognition or, hearing that so-and-so invested, so I should invest too. I just wanted to add that point, that I think that overall, there are some businesses that are getting funded that are women-led for the wrong reasons as well.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, Silvana. I think that's also really one of the goals of this session, or at least that's my hope for today, is to help us to think beyond, apart from, investing for women just for the sake of doing it. What else are the information that we should be asking for to better understand and make sure that our investment, or also during the whole process of due diligence, really aligns to our intention, and be very mindful in terms of how to achieve that impact, which is to empower women, or broadly gender inclusion, and how to achieve that through the different process of the investment, and also at the end afterwards, even closing the investment, how do we keep track and measure the impact, or to dissect what we would like to achieve. So that's definitely a very important point. Thanks for bringing that up, Silvana. And I think it means a lot to hear it from a female entrepreneur herself for making this point. So actually, I see that there are a lot of intermediaries in the room, and I would be quite curious also to hear from you in the chat. You can share it in the chat about your experience, which is, having heard all of these challenges associated with women entrepreneurs or supporting women in pursuing a career in being an entrepreneur. What are some of the activities or action that you have taken so far in facilitating women, either in building a network, as we also mentioned earlier in the discussion, or facilitating their growth? So I will be very curious to hear from you in the chat, if you could share some of your experience. In the meantime, Anita, back to you, because apart from being a lawyer, you are also an angel investor yourself. And so I'm actually quite curious to hear, for example, we got all so excited about investing in women, or more broadly also gender lens investing. What are some of the challenges also, for example, as an angel investor, that you would like to, overcome, or that you would appreciate that, help you with your decision as an investor? Would you be able to share a bit on that?
Sure. So, Maxime, I have to say, when I do angel investments, very small ticket, by the way, but whenever I do investments, it's not really, I don't see whether a man or a woman is leading it. I also, only understand law. I understand very little else. But so what I like to be very comfortable with is the person leading, or the team. Oftentimes, especially if you're looking at a scalable investment, and you're looking at a very quick exit, one person is not, usually there's a team, and you need to understand the team. So yes, in terms of investments, but I also have to say that it's difficult to actually find women, even if I were to go out, and we did this exercise, right? We did this exercise with Sonia Appa's Bangladesh Women Angels Network, where we tried, Sonia Bashir Kabir tried to identify women-led startups so that other women could invest in it. And I sat through a number of pitch sessions, and I can't really say that there were obviously exciting ones, but I think it was an effort to find women-led or women co-founded startups, other than the obvious, other than Prava or other than ShopUp. There are some obvious ones, but what about the rest? It's actually an exercise going out and finding them. And the other thing I noticed is, just don't put a woman's photo on your pitch deck just to meet the gender tick box, right? So don't do that. And there are so many companies who do that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I hear you completely. It's really about knowing where these companies are and knowing what they actually do, right? So I think there are two major points that you have made, which is, first of all, access to women-led and women-founded companies. But then also, second point is that, we shouldn't just stop there, but if we really want to invest for women empowerment, it's not only about who is leading the companies, which of course is an important part. So I think that's also an important point, and also insights for me as in how to bring forward in the activities that we're going to do in B-Briddhi. I see that we have a female founder in the audience that raised her hand, and I'm quite curious what she would like to say. Farin from DhakaCast.
Hi, Maxime. Hope you are well. Nice to meet you again. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Farin, founder of DhakaCast. So DhakaCast is basically a healthcare startup focused to support diabetic patients in Bangladesh to deliver the products and service at the doorsteps at affordable cost. We are the first healthcare startup, actually niche based, and we are working B2C. So I think that as we are early stage company and working in healthcare, so founders like us, we have that instinct or eagerness to solve the problem that we identified. But I think that in early stage companies need some special, not special, we need something that, in policy level, it should be easier for us to promote more female founders, to bring up them in as a female entrepreneur or in this ecosystem. And also I think that networking is a great barrier for female founders in Bangladesh. They are not so much used to in networking, so that is also a barrier for getting fund investment and everything. I'm talking definitely about the early stage company. So my question to Bijon Bhai and also to Maxim, that how can you help us to break this barrier in this level? Thank you so much.
Actually, when I was listening, I was like, wow, okay, let's take notes. Like, these are the problems that we need to try to attend to. But also, I will throw it also to the audience, because we have a lot of intermediaries here. So I hope you also took notes about what you could be doing to facilitate and grow, support women entrepreneurs. I see another audience that raised a hand. I actually haven't met you yet. Said or Saif, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Saif. Saif. Hello, everyone. I'm Saif from Lily. And Lily, we're building this amazing platform for women where we are intended to serve women consumers with the help of women service providers. So yeah, it's basically, I don't have much questions now, as of now, but I really want to share my thoughts as well. And I'm really happy and excited to see that Silvana Appa and Anita Ghazi Appa said few things about this thing. And you also mentioned, Maxim, that nowadays we can see a trend that for the sake of, women empowerment is a buzzword nowadays. For our case, when we started, we found a market. We thought there might be a market. That's why we went to this direction. And later, and I didn't have much idea about this impact thing. How does it work? But with time, even I got polluted from like this one particular time. One investor from US, angel investor, he actually told me to beat the drum roll of women empowerment as much as you can and get fundings. And I used to get, we don't have any, the thing is, I don't have any co-founders now, but most of the time I get questions like, why don't you have a female co-founder? So it just didn't happen with me. I couldn't, there wasn't any female co-founder who co-founded Lily. But even I was bashing myself to find a female co-founder for a while. I was looking here and there, like if I can have a female co-founder. Like I used to meet this few women, and I found that some of them kind of exploit it, like understanding their value, that they might be a valuable asset to the startup just because they are female. They can understand the desperation in me. And later at one point, I realized these are just like for the sake of having one female co-founder, probably I'm doing this, and this is not doing any justice to the whole thing. So yeah, I'm really aligned with what Silvana Appa said and what Anita Ghazi Appa said here. Like just for the sake of having women, entrepreneurs or women empowerment, we shouldn't do this empowerment thing. And this mindset is actually killing the whole thing, I believe. Even the investors, some investors, and everyone, like what kind of how do you feel when someone says that you have to beat the drum roll of women empowerment to get funding? So you feel demotivated, right? So yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing this topic. And no one talks about this nowadays because it's really cliche, and everyone tries to be on the safe side, saying, yeah, we're with women entrepreneurs, women empowerment and stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. And I'm glad that we're addressing the elephant in the room when nobody else is talking about it. And also, since a lot of you are really major ecosystem player in the impact investing scene in Bangladesh, so I would also ask you to be part of this, because you are also some of the people that are pushing this field forward and bring the conversation to a different level. Anita, you have something to respond?
Yes, I just wanted to sort of summarize what we're talking about. We're talking about GLI, um, lens, and a part of that is empowering women, right? So it is empowering women, but it's not necessarily about empowering women to become founders or co-founders. Empowering women can start much lower down the career track, if you like. Make it something that I said at the beginning, make it equitable, right? Remove the general ideas that we have about gender roles. A woman, when a woman goes to interview, don't ask them, oh, did you just get married? Oh, you're going to get pregnant. I have to give you maternity leave. No, remove that concepts such as this, right? Remove the societal stickers that we put on gender, and give them equitable playing fields. Then empower the woman to climb up and show what she's capable of doing until she reaches a leadership role. Just don't put someone randomly at the top who will probably not be able to do anything, who will not be able to add value to your company. Thank you.
Right. Very fair enough comments. And also, I was just also thinking about some of our previous conversation, Anita, about also how you as a founder yourself as well, right? Like manage your company culture so that there is also this idea of gender inclusion or gender equity within how different gender work together in your company. So I think that resonate a lot. And so, yeah, cool. So I'm just like being mindful of time, and maybe to wrap up the panel session, I would like to ask all the panelists, of three panelists. So for example, to start with Silvana as an entrepreneur, addressing your fellow entrepreneur in the room, what would be one of the action that you think is very helpful for them when it comes to the topic of facilitating gender inclusion through their work, and also how they, and okay, it's actually two questions. I'm sorry, I'm very greedy here, but what would be the tips for you also, for them to, as a female entrepreneur, how can they find the support? Where do you start with, for example, building your network? So over to you, Silvana.
So sorry, I'm not sure I understood the first question. Can you repeat that, please?
I think in general, like for female entrepreneurs, what can they do to enable themselves to understand the impact in creating gender equity? Because being a female founder herself, as we have also discussed already, is not enough. So how can they take one step further? So that's the first question. Second question is, because we also talk about some of the challenges, right? So what is one of the very easy starting point or low-hanging fruit that you would mention to them as a female entrepreneur, either to start building the network, where to start? So one very practical tip from you to the fellow entrepreneur.
Sure. So I think the first point is just to try to be thoughtful in your decision making. I mean, in the example of the work that Anita does with her firm, and trying to make sure that at every level of the organization, women's needs are taken into account equally, right? And so I think as a leader, that is our responsibility. As employers, that is our responsibility. And I also think, in healthcare in particular, 80% of household decisions relating to healthcare are made by women. And yet, even in the United States, I think only 13% of healthcare CEOs are women. And so I don't even know what it is globally. It's got to be much worse. And so I think, I also think that really ensuring that women's voices are taken into account in terms of designing patient experiences, in terms of designing our products, is so important in healthcare and education, in a lot of sectors, right? And I think when we think about user design for products as entrepreneurs, the bias is always to design for men, right? Even in health, like even, I mean, the female brain was not studied until after I was born, for example, by neuroscientists, you know, and so it's still very new, but I think that's one of the burdens that we do have to carry. So I hope that answers a little bit of the first question. But I will say, just by virtue of being a female leader, the impact that you can have, I think there's an impact there that sometimes I don't even realize it. But then, I mean, you know, we had at some point, you know, during COVID, we had to let go of a few people at the beginning when things were very uncertain. And I mean, some of the women came to us, and I mean, it was very heartbreaking. Luckily, we've been able to bring most of them back, you know, and said they'd never worked in an organization that was so comfortable for a woman before. And that's like a second level layer of impact that I don't think I had realized. And you end up, I think, just as a woman leader, you end up attracting 3 out of 5 of my C-suite are women. So I've attracted women leadership into my company as well. And that was not something that I was super intentional about, or something that I would have even expected, to be honest. But I think that there are things that implicitly come from just choosing to be a woman leader and woman entrepreneur. In terms of the second question on building your network, I would say be relentless. Be relentless. I mean, it's very simple. You know, use every single resource available to you and chase every contact to its logical conclusion. So that means if your cousin is in a related industry, call up your cousin and tell them what you're doing and ask them if they know anybody they can introduce you to. And that's literally how I started, right? And I think, like, I still have it. I have a spreadsheet of all of the contacts that I have, like, who introduced me to them, when I first met them, when I last talked to them, and when I should next talk to them. And that's how I organize it. And it's literally just a Google sheet. It's very simple, but I think you have to be really intentional about it and not shy about it. I'm not scared to cold email people. Most of the time you're not going to get a response, but 1 out of 10 times you might, right? And so I would say just be relentless and don't be shy. Because I think sometimes we're a little reticent, in particular as women, but I would really encourage you just to let go of that ego, which is in any case going to be important, I think, if you're going to go on an entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you so much, Silvana. I'm also taking notes. So apart from being relentless, and also make sure that you have an Excel sheet, or take notes somewhere who you have talked to and how, and make sure that also you probably at some point when you become the leader, like get to the leader position, maybe you could also replicate the how do you say, generous in help that other people have done for you to, you know, just like simply as you said, like being a female leader, you're serving as a role model. Cool. Thank you so much, Silvana. Anita, so today I think it's very interesting because you kind of wear 2 hats, right? Like as the lawyer facilitating investment and also as an investor yourself. What would be some of the takeaway message that you would like the audience to leave today's session with?
Right. Takeaway in relation to what the audience should take away with. So keeping in mind that the audience that we have today are intermediaries or investees, right? They're companies who are looking for investment. Look, the place where we are at in terms of the local ecosystem raising funds, and this is a conversation, you know, Bijon and I have quite a bit, is, you know, you're at different stages as you go along the journey. And I think the stage we are at right now is advising or educating the companies that do not, you know, understand what the investor is looking for you, right? Understand what a due diligence looks like. Understand that whatever pitch you are giving, which might be amazing, will be followed up by due diligence, and it has to match up, right? A great pitch does not guarantee an investment. So I think in terms of the ecosystem, that's where we are at. Just in other than that, you know, finding investors also is not easy. We've heard Silvana say this, you know, a few times during the program, and we understand that there are only just a few organizations or funds or VCs in Bangladesh. So the way to go around that is, and you know, I'm completely blown away with Silvana's spreadsheet. I'm going to try to do that. That's amazing. So maybe that, definitely that, but also, stepping out of your comfort zone to meet new people. When you hear of investors, you reach out to them. They probably are not very welcoming at the first call, but keep in touch. One of a very cool a founder that Bijan and I met, and we wanted to invest, but we couldn't go ahead with it. This person basically told us that, I wanted funding from so and so company, and I was too young for them. So I told them, you know what? I'm going to still give you my numbers every month. And you let us know when we are ready for you. And that was amazing. And that founder went on to secure the funding that he was aiming for 2 years. So at times it takes a while, but don't give up. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. Bijon, because we have a bit of time for you to make a closing remark, so maybe we can leave it a bit towards the end for you to share what are some of the main message that you would like the audience to take home with. But before that, actually, because also part of what we are aiming to do with B-Briddhi is also to enable the ecosystem to connect, make the necessary network to build the ecosystem. And so today I would like to also give Bangladesh Angels Network some airtime, so to speak, to talk about the latest initiative that they have when it comes to facilitating women as investors and to also support gender inclusive investment. So Nishor, would you mind sharing a few words about this latest initiative? And maybe I can have a few follow-up questions to that.
Excellent. And first, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Apologies. I'm at a coffee shop, so the internet's a little bit spotty / it's a little loud. But yeah, no, good to be in the room, and it was great to listen to the discussions. I think, just to kind of give an update on where we are as a network and some of the work we're doing. We're closing our 3rd year of operations. In the last 30 months or so, we've facilitated over $3 million into 22 startups and select SMEs in Bangladesh, and mostly in Bangladesh. And from a gender lens perspective, I think where we are, right now, about 30% of our portfolio are led by female CEOs, companies like Moner Bondhu or Shadeen Fintech, which we did with Anita Apu. It would probably go up to maybe 40+% if we're talking about some of the companies like Bijan Bhai talked about, Shuttle, where they're not necessarily led by women, at least at the founder level maybe, or the CEO level, but they're nevertheless creating products and services catering primarily to a women audience or women customer base, like Frontier Nutrition or like Shuttle, as Bijan Bhai mentioned. On the investor side, we're hovering around 8% of our membership, which happen to be female. But that hasn't grown, that's grown by maybe 30%, but the overall network has grown by 5x during the pandemic. So we're definitely kind of lagging behind there. And in terms of those who's invested, unique investors who invested into companies in our kind of pipeline and portfolio, about 10% are female investors. And any given, in terms of the investment amount, that's about 20% of our kind of investment base that has gone into female-led ventures. In any given quarter, probably working with 30+ companies, of which 10 to 15% are led by women. At the beginning of the year, the team and I kind of came together and we made this a priority that, hey, we need to go out, one, and support more female entrepreneurs. Second, we need to create more female angels. That's a way we can contribute back to the ecosystem, and it's quite something that we're all quite passionate about as a team. And we also just see opportunities as well, right? There's a huge opportunity when it comes to bringing in more female angels. There's lots of successful women around the country at the director level, at the executive level, in Bangladesh, but also within the NRB community, right? That's also been really amazing to see is how many successful Bangladeshis there are, including female executives who are increasingly becoming more senior in places like tech and finance, in places like Silicon Valley or Wall Street, or in places like Canada and the EU, and as well as Australia. And I think there's also an opportunity, I think, to apply a gender lens for impact-oriented companies when it comes to potentially then going out and getting institutional impact capital. So what are we doing? In the beginning, with the help of people like Anita Apu and Tinapa, who are both on our board, we built an informal advisory board of female angels and members, and we started meeting on a regular basis, just discussing these issues and getting advice from them about what we can do. one of the things they told us to do was, hey, we want to hear more success stories of female startup leaders. And so we started this podcast series. Anita was the very first one that did it for us. Silvana was there. Maxime recently did a session with us as well. And so that allowed us to learn a lot and also to build our community and also to engage with particularly female VCs and angels from around the world. And we got a couple of pieces of advice. So one particularly from Amra Naidu from Accelerating Asia, which is very active in Bangladesh. One piece of advice was, this was her observation, having been in the ecosystem for a few years, that women investors tend to be more community oriented compared to maybe the male ones. And so it makes sense to carve out a separate sphere for women. The second piece of advice that we got from Angel Ali of 37 Angels, which was one of the first angel networks started 10 years ago in New York for women in North America, or led by women in North America. Her advice was, it doesn't have to be that you have to go out and look for women-led startups. When the community and the ecosystem sees that, hey, here's an angel network with females at the front of it, naturally you'll start getting the deal flow, right? The decision was made to create a women's chapter within Bangladesh Angels called BWIN, Bangladesh Women Investors Network. And the idea is, we were originally thinking about maybe making it a completely separate entity, but we made the decision that rather than bifurcating between men and women, which doesn't make sense, what it does make sense to do is once again carve out a separate space. And so we've started meeting. We'll hopefully launch our website soon, and hopefully you could start applying there. So it becomes another funnel for both getting angels and also for founders. But the idea is to meet on a bi-monthly basis, have these brunches. Part of it can be learning sessions led by women investors, and part of it is to hear pitches from women founders, as well as women-focused founders as well, and use that as a means to increase those metrics that I talked about at the beginning, right? The number of companies that we're investing in that are led by women, the number of companies we're investing in that are female-focused, the number of companies, amount of money that we're deploying into such types of ventures, et cetera. And then lastly, we're also working on a few initiatives. So recently we got into a program with Andy, Expert Network of Development Entrepreneurs, for a gender smart investment facility for 3 of our companies, which are not based in Bangladesh, actually. So they're Hospulse, which is a Delhi-based platform for medical tourism. Another is Reverse Resources, which is based in Estonia, but they're working to digitize the waste value chain. Another is MyCash, based out of Malaysia, but they're working with migrant workers from Bangladesh throughout Southeast Asia. And we'll be working with them as a team to kind of apply some of these gender smart principles, because they're also part of the ABPN initiative, and also the things we've learned from B-Briddhi, to be able to work with these entrepreneurs and kind of measuring their impact on women in the value chain, as well as within their workforce, and hopefully communicating that story as well. So those are some of the things we're working on. Happy to answer any questions, but overall, we're very excited about what 2022 can bring for us to support these kinds of initiatives.
Thank you, Disho. I'm very curious to as well, and I already cannot wait to hear the learnings that you will be making in the next year once this is launched. Cool. So thank you so much for updating us about what has been bubbling on the ground when it comes to supporting gender inclusive investing. So with that, I think I will wrap up the session today here and hand over the stage to Bijan to share a few remarks to close the event today.
First of all, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Silvana, for giving so much time. Prava has been personally a lot of help to me, especially during the pandemic. I think most of us have used Prava services, so not an exception. So I'm really glad that Silvana is there. And every time someone asks us what are one of the top companies in health, the name of Prava definitely comes up. Maxim knows that as well. I think we were discussing what are the top companies in health tech. I immediately mentioned Prava. But thank you so much for giving us time. I know it has been on a Thursday afternoon, so not an easy time to kind of come into.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. I wish we could be in person, but in the future, hopefully we can do more of that.
Definitely. Next year, we're looking for an in-person visit. Anita Appa, I'll see you soon, possibly on Sunday. And I think we met this week as well for a couple of times. So again, Anita Appa, always a pleasure to host you. And thank you not only for supporting Like Castle, but supporting the whole ecosystem. I think from day one in 2013-14, when we founded the company, I think for free advice without paying very expensive legal fees, I think Anitapa has helped not only Like Castle, but a lot of those other companies out there. So I think not a lot of people do that. So, thank you for being there again, supporting the ecosystem. Nijirbai, I think it's always glad to work with Nijirbai, and I look forward to working with this very interesting network that you are building in parallel with BAN. And I think Bangladesh Challenge Center of Women would be very, very interesting, and we'll be very glad to support that. And rest of the audience, thank you for joining. Have a nice weekend ahead. I think gender as a topic, I think we all need to understand more about it, and my understanding on the topic is also improving. And hopefully, I know at the end of that, we are looking at a more diverse, inclusive, and tolerant, not only an entrepreneurial community, but a society as a whole. So here's to more diversity, more inclusion, and more tolerance among us. So good evening and have a nice weekend. Don't work too much. Blessed up. Take care.
Thank you so much, Vijan. Have a nice evening and weekend for those of you who are in Bangladesh. Take care and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.